You see, one of the greatest mistakes we make in life is assuming that because no one sees us, God must not be working on us. But the truth is, God always hides what he values before he elevates it. Think about a diamond. Before it shines on the hand of a bride, it spends centuries buried beneath the earth, hidden, pressed, and shaped in darkness. Nobody applauds the diamond when it's still coal. Nobody celebrates the seed when it's under the dirt. Yet without that hidden season, the shine and the fruit could never be revealed. In the same way, God has marked you for something great. He will hide you before he shows you. He will conceal you in a place that feels small, quiet, even invisible, so that when you finally step into your purpose, you are unshakable. Sometimes the most dangerous thing that can happen to a person is being elevated too soon. Imagine giving a child the keys to a car before they know how to drive. They will crash not because the car is bad, but because the timing was wrong. God loves you too much to put you in the spotlight before your spirit is steady, before your character is firm, before your faith is mature. That's why he hides you. He hides you in a season where you feel overlooked at work. You give your best, but no one seems to recognize your efforts. You watch others get promoted while you sit in the shadows. But what you don't realize is that God is not ignoring you. He is protecting you. He's building in you the strength to handle the weight of promotion without letting pride or pressure destroy you. Look at the life of David. Before he was ever king, he was hidden away in the fields tending sheep. His brothers were on the battlefield, visible, respected, admired. David was out there with sheep in silence. It looked like obscurity, but it was preparation, because it was in the field where David learned how to fight lions and bears. It was in the secret place that he learned to trust God with no audience clapping for him. So when Goliath came, he didn't need a crown or a crowd to validate him. He already had a history with God in the hidden places. If God had exposed David too soon, he might not have been ready for the weight of kingship. God hides you before he elevates you because he's writing victories in secret that will sustain you in public. Think about daily life for a moment. How many times have you seen someone rise too quickly? Maybe in your workplace, someone gets promoted not because of skill, but because of connections. For a little while they shine, but sooner or later the cracks start showing because elevation without preparation is destruction. And on the flip side, maybe you've been working hard for years, doing your best, staying late, showing up early, yet no one seems to notice. Can I tell you, hidden place is holy. God is teaching you discipline when no one claps. He's teaching you resilience when no one thanks you. He's teaching you humility when no one sees you. And when your moment comes, you won't just rise, you'll last. Even in relationships, this truth applies. Sometimes God will hide you from the wrong people so that you don't waste your heart on those who cannot carry your future. You may feel lonely, wondering why doors are closing, why certain friendships fall apart, why certain opportunities slip through your hands. What if God is hiding you to protect you from connections that would contaminate your calling? What if he is preserving you for someone or something that requires the best version of you, the version he is still shaping in secret? Think about the seed in the soil. Nobody digs up a seed every day to see if it's growing. You bury it, you cover it, you hide it, because the hiding is necessary for the roots to go deep. If you expose it too soon, it dies. So when you feel hidden, when you feel buried, don't curse the soil. Don't despise the dirt. The very thing that covers you is the thing that will nourish you until you are strong enough to stand. God will not expose you until your roots are deep enough to handle the storm. And I know waiting can be painful. You watch others shine while you're still in the shadows. You watch others step into the light while you're still in the cave. Don't confuse hidden with forgotten. Don't confuse delay with denial. When God hides you, it's because he sees what you cannot. He knows the weight of what's coming, and he is making sure you won't break when it arrives. Think of the potter shaping clay. Before the vessel is displayed, it is pressed, spun, molded, and placed in the fire. Hidden seasons are the fire, and without the fire, the vessel cannot hold the oil. Your hidden season is not wasted time, it's invested time. God is teaching you lessons in private that will save your destiny in public. He's letting you fail quietly so that you can succeed loudly. He's teaching you endurance in the shadows so that when the spotlight comes, you won't crumble. You're being shaped in silence for a stage you haven't even seen yet. And when he finally reveals you, no one will be able to deny that his hand was on you all along. People often confuse solitude with punishment. They think that because they are walking alone, because they eat dinner alone, because they cry into pillows that no one sees, it must mean they've been abandoned. Solitude is not a life sentence. It is a divine setup. It is God's way of removing the noise so he can position you for something greater than you can imagine. There is a difference between being lonely and being set apart. Loneliness makes you feel empty, but being set apart means you're being filled in private. You are not deserted, you are being developed. You are not rejected, you are being redirected. Think about an author writing a book. No one applauds the author in the quiet hours of the night as he sits at the desk, staring at blank pages. The world does not clap when he deletes paragraph after paragraph, trying to find the right words. But when that book is finally released, when it touches thousands, millions, everyone celebrates. What they don't see is that the power of the book was born in solitude. That lonely room was not punishment, it was preparation. So it is with your life. The silence around you is not evidence of God's absence. It's evidence of his intimacy. He is whispering strategies in the quiet that you could not hear in the crowd. Solitude gives you space to discover your own voice. In daily life, we are constantly surrounded by the expectations of people, what your parents want, your boss wants, what society wants, what friends think. But in solitude, all those voices fall silent and you begin to ask, who am I? What do I truly want? What has God placed inside of me? Without solitude, you never meet yourself. That's why so many people stay busy all the time, because they are afraid of what silence will reveal. But solitude is the womb of identity. It is where you birth self-awareness, where you birth clarity, where you birth strength that does not depend on applause. Look at Moses. Raised in the palace, surrounded by privilege, but when God was ready to shape him, he sent him into the desert. 40 years of solitude, no crowds, no Egypt, no luxury, just sheep and sand. To Moses, it may have felt like a sentence, a waste, a forgotten chapter. But that desert was the setup. That desert was the training ground where he learned patience, endurance, leadership, humility. When God finally called him at the burning bush, Moses wasn't a spoiled prince. He was a seasoned shepherd strong enough to lead a nation. What looked like exile was actually preparation. In your own life, solitude often shows up as closed doors. Maybe you tried to build relationships that crumbled. Maybe you chased opportunities that slipped away. Maybe you were left standing alone while others walked off together. It hurts, but solitude strips away the temporary so you can build on the eternal. Maybe you didn't get that job because God was setting you up for the career that will fulfill your calling. Maybe that friendship ended because it was blocking your growth. Maybe that relationship broke apart because it was not aligned with your destiny. Solitude is God's way of clearing the stage so that when the right thing enters, there will be room for it to flourish. Consider the eagle. The eaglet is ready to fly. The mother eagle stirs up the nest, making it uncomfortable, poking with thorns, so the eaglet has no choice but to spread its wings. At first, the eaglet feels abandoned as it falls into open air. That falling is not a sentence. It's a setup to teach it that it was born to fly. In the same way, when God removes your comforts, when he disturbs your nest, it feels painful, it feels isolating, but it is not to kill you. It is to awaken the wings you never knew you had. Even in modern life, solitude has hidden blessings. Think of someone who loses a friend group and suddenly feels alone. In that solitude, they begin to focus on personal growth, reading, building skills, maybe starting a business. What seemed like abandonment becomes the launch pad for a new identity. Someone who goes through a breakup and feels like their whole world collapsed, yet that solitude opens space for healing, reflection, and eventually stepping into a relationship that honors their true worth. If you look back over your life, some of your greatest seasons of growth didn't happen in crowds. They happened in solitude. And here is the paradox. What you think is the worst chapter is often the chapter heaven celebrates, because it is in solitude where you learn how to stand without support, how to shine without a spotlight, how to love yourself without validation. It is in solitude where you begin to see that God is enough, that his presence is more fulfilling than the presence of people, that his voice carries more weight than the applause of the crowd. Solitude is a setup because it shifts your foundation. It teaches you to lean on the eternal, not the temporary. So when you find yourself sitting at a table for one, don't curse the silence. When you walk into your apartment and hear nothing but your own footsteps, don't call it a sentence. When you scroll through your phone and realize there is no one to call, don't call it punishment. This is God's setup. This is the training ground where he strips away the noise to reveal the treasure. Because when you learn how to live in solitude enough, you become dangerous, dangerous to despair, dangerous to doubt, dangerous to every lie that says you need others to complete you. You realize that solitude was never a sentence. It was the setup for strength, clarity, and destiny. Silence can be uncomfortable. Silence exposes what we try to drown out with noise. That's why so many people keep the television running in the background, keep music blasting in their ears, keep conversations constant, because silence forces us to face ourselves. But silence is where God speaks the loudest. He doesn't compete with chaos. He doesn't shout over distractions. He whispers, and the whisper is only heard by those who are willing to be still. When the world goes quiet and your soul feels empty, that is often the very place where his voice becomes undeniable. Think of Elijah on the mountain. The wind blew strong, but God was not in the wind. The earthquake shook the ground, but God was not in the earthquake. The fire roared, God was not in the fire. And then came a still small voice, a whisper, and Elijah recognized it as God. That moment reveals something profound. God's loudest revelations often come in the gentlest sounds. In silence, the volume of heaven is turned up. In solitude, the frequencies of his presence are clear. Look at daily life. When you're in a crowded cafe, it's hard to focus on one voice. Everyone's talking, plates are clattering, music is playing, and you can't even hear your own thoughts. But when you step into a quiet room, suddenly even the faintest sound is magnified. The same applies to your spiritual walk. As long as you're surrounded by noise, the opinions of others, the pressure of deadlines, the constant scrolling through social media, you'll struggle to hear God. But when you allow silence to settle in, his whisper becomes thunder to your soul. God speaks in silence because silence strips away the illusions. In the stillness, you can't hide behind busyness or excuses. In silence, you're confronted with your fears, your doubts, your insecurities. And it's in that raw, vulnerable state that his voice comes, not to condemn, but to heal. It's in silence that he reminds you of your worth, your calling, your identity. Silence is not empty, it is full of his presence. Think about someone who just went through heartbreak. The relationship ends. Suddenly the phone stops ringing. No texts, no late night calls, no weekend plans. At first, the silence feels like death. But in that silence, something happens. The person begins to rediscover who they are without the other. They hear the voice of God reminding them that they are not defined by who left them, but by the one who never leaves. That's why sometimes God allows the noise to stop, so that you can hear his truth above the lies you believed for too long. Or think about a person recovering from burnout. They've been running nonstop meetings, deadlines, family obligations, late nights, early mornings. Eventually, their body shuts down, forcing them into rest. And in that stillness, stripped of their busy calendar, they finally hear what God has been trying to say all along. Your value is not in what you do, but in who you are. The silence of forced rest becomes the stage for divine clarity. Nature itself teaches this lesson. Walk into a forest at dawn. There's no traffic, no shouting, no phones buzzing, just the soft hum of creation. And if you stand still long enough, you hear layers you never noticed, the rustling of leaves, the call of birds, the trickle of water. The silence amplifies the details. In the same way, You step into spiritual silence, you begin to hear details you missed before. Little nudges, subtle confirmations, divine directions that were drowned out by the chaos of life. God speaks in silence because silence requires trust. When you can't hear him over the noise, you assume he's absent. But when you discipline yourself to be still, you begin to recognize his presence in subtle ways. Peace that suddenly covers you in a storm. The scripture that leaps off the page as if it was written for you. The memory of his faithfulness that rises up in your spirit when you're tempted to give up. These are his whispers, and they are louder than any shout. Think about a child learning to listen. Parents know that if they want their child's attention, sometimes they lower their voice. Why? Because when the voice gets quieter, the child has to lean in closer. God often speaks softly because he wants you to lean in, to draw nearer, to pay attention. Silence is not the absence of God's voice. It's the invitation to lean in. And here's the paradox. The silence that feels like emptiness is often the very place where God fills you the most. In silence, he gives strategies for your next season. In silence, he gives healing for wounds nobody knows you carry. In silence, he prepares you to step into rooms where his voice, not your noise, will sustain you. You may not hear him shouting, but if you listen closely, you'll recognize his whisper guiding your steps, comforting your soul, and confirming that you are exactly where he wants you to be. Pain has a way of feeling final. When you're in the middle of it, when your heart is shattered, when your body aches, when your spirit feels heavy, it's hard to believe that anything good could ever come out of it. Pain is not just random suffering, it is the passport to your power. It is the very thing God uses to shape your strength, to build your endurance, to prepare you for the destiny that he's written over your life. You cannot carry great power without walking through deep pain, because pain carves out space inside of you for compassion, for wisdom, for resilience, for authority. The very places where you blood are the places where you will bless others. Think about childbirth. No mother brings life into the world without travail. The beauty of a baby is birthed through the agony of contractions, the tears, the cries, the pushing. Pain is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is being born. In the same way, the pain in your life is not proof of punishment. It is proof of delivery. God is birthing something in you, and the contractions are only announcing that what you carry is too great to remain hidden. Consider Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, locked in a prison, years of pain, years of confusion, years of silence. But every painful step was a passport taking him closer to the palace. Had he not endured betrayal, he would not have learned forgiveness. Had he not endured slavery, he would not have learned leadership. Had he not endured prison, he would not have been positioned for Pharaoh's favor. What others meant for evil, God used for good. Pain became the very pathway to power. In daily life, pain often shows up in rejection. You apply for a job and get turned down. At first it feels like humiliation, but that rejection becomes the redirection toward the opportunity you were born for. Maybe you invest in a relationship that ends in heartbreak. At first it feels like devastation, but later you realize that the pain taught you self-worth, taught you boundaries, taught you to never again settle for less than you deserve. Pain has a way of teaching you lessons that comfort never could. Look at an athlete training for competition. Every sprint burns their lungs, every lift tears their muscles, every drill pushes them beyond what feels possible. In the moment, the pain is intense, but that pain is shaping strength. Without it, the athlete would never reach the level of excellence required to win. In the same way, the pain you're experiencing in life is training you for victories you could never achieve without endurance. Pain doesn't disqualify you, it conditions you. Think of a person who lost everything in business. They went bankrupt, lost the company, lost the money, lost the pride. That challenge is unbearable in the moment. But that same person, if they choose to rise, often builds back wiser, stronger, more disciplined. They avoid mistakes they once overlooked. They manage money with greater care. They lead people with greater humility. The pain became the passport that carried them into a version of themselves that success alone could never have produced. Even in relationship between parents and children, pain plays its role. A child who falls while learning to walk experiences pain. Stumble teaches balance. A teenager who faces disappointment in school learns that failure is not the end, but a teacher. Parents who endure sleepless nights, sacrifices, and tears in raising their children discover a depth of love and resilience they never knew they had. Pain is never wasted. It always prepares you for a deeper dimension of power. God allows pain because pain wakes us up. Pain forces us to grow. Pain pushes us out of places we would have stayed stuck forever. Sometimes you wouldn't have left that toxic job, but the pain forced you to. You wouldn't have walked away from that relationship, but the pain pushed you out. You wouldn't have discovered your gift, but pain pushed you to create, to write, to sing, to build. Pain does not leave you where it found you. It propels you into places you would never have gone on your own. Gold cannot become pure until it goes through the fire. Olives cannot release oil until they are crushed. Grapes cannot become wine until they are pressed. And you cannot step into your fullest power until you've walked through the process of pain. The very things you thought would break you are the things that make you. Every sleepless night, every betrayal, every disappointment, every heartbreak, it is not wasted. It is all part of the process, part of the preparation, part of the passport that leads you into the destiny God has prepared for you.